going live to YouTube now.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the WA Planning Commission meeting of Wednesday, the 30th of April 2025. For those in person, we have quite a few in person today, so welcome to you all, and also to those online. The meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing via the Commission's website and YouTube. Commission members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. In opening the meeting, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the lands of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation and pay our respects to elders past and apologies and leave of absence. We have all members in person today. So welcome Commission members to the meeting. I'll move to declarations of interest. We do have a few to go through today. Item 3.1, which is the lifting of urban deferment Bullfoot South. Commissioner Bennett has declared an indirect pecuniary interest in that Mirvac is the proponent for the amendment and a client of Commissioner Bennett's employer, VLE, on other projects. And Commissioner Bennett is not seeking to participate on the matter. Item 3.2, District Structure Plan for North East Baldivis. Commissioner Bennett has pecuniary interest in that Commissioner Bennett's employer, CLE, is the proponent of the item. In the same matter, Commissioner Shears has declared a perceived impartiality interest in that the Stockland General Manager, Cole Button, is known to Commissioner Shears and her family. As that is a perceived impartiality interest, I'm happy for you to remain in the meeting. Commission members, you're supportive of that? Thank you very much. On the same matter, Commissioner Sandry has declared a perceived impartiality interest in that Commissioner Sandry's partner works for the Shire of Serpentine, Jarrahdale, and the deputies representing this local government. Also that Lorien Nominees Proprietary Limited, listed as a landowner, was a former client of Sandry on an unrelated matter in her former business, and that was more than 2 years ago. Given the time that has lapsed, I'm happy for that to be considered a perceived impartiality interest and for Commissioner Sandry to remain and participate in that matter. If there are any objections, very much. On for item 4.1, the MRS amendment for Maida Vale Urban Precinct. I have made a declaration of actual impartiality interest in that a close friend is an affected landowner, and I will not be seeking to participate in the discussion or vote on the item. And Deputy Chair Commissioner Herron will be chairing the item at the deputation. Thank you very much. On the same item, Commissioner Bennett has declared an indirect pecuniary interest in that John Ross and M Group are the proponents for this amendment, and they are clients of Commissioner Bennett's employer, CLE, on other projects, and is not seeking to participate in this item. Commissioner Bennett, sorry, in item 4.2, MRS amendment for Brabham and Dayton Urban Precincts. Commissioner Bennett has declared an indirect pecuniary interest in that Commissioner Bennett's employer, CLE, is the consultant on the adjoining Brabham project, Appeal and Development WA JV, and is not seeking to participate in the item. In the same item, Commissioner Lakey has declared an indirect pecuniary interest in that Commissioner Lakey was previously an employee of Pete, had ceased employment in February 23. Pete are Development WA's development partner on this project, and Commissioner Lakey currently holds a number of Pete shares in his self-managed super fund and is not seeking to participate in the item. On item 4.3, MRS Planning Control Area number 150, Brook Intermodal Transport Facility, Commissioner Bennett has declared a perceived impartiality interest in that Commissioner Bennett's employer, CLE, has been previously appointed as the planners on the industrial development west of the rail. CLE does not have a current appointment on this work, and on that basis is seeking to participate in the item. Commission members, I'm happy to support that if there's any dissent. Thank you very much. On the same item, Commissioner Sandry has declared an actual impartiality interest in that the landowners within the PCA were former clients of Commissioner Sandry and advised previously on the subject property, and on that basis is not seeking to participate in the item. On item 4.5, Perth Convention and Exhibition Centre Precinct Improvement Scheme number 1, Commissioner Lakey has declared a perceived impartiality interest in that Commissioner Lakey has provided project management services for the PCEC redevelopment project joint venture partners for 3 months between May and July 2023. The role was focused on project management protocols, processes and overseeing consultants and was not involved in commercial decisions and is seeking to participate in the item. Commission members, unless there's any dissent, I'm happy to approve participation. Thank you. And on the same item, Commissioner Herron has declared a direct pecuniary interest in that Commissioner Herron has provided advice to the proponents in his role at Urbis and it will not be seeking to participate in the item. Thank you. And on item 4.12 WAPC committee minutes, Commissioner Shears has noted a perceived impartiality interest in that the design review panel considered an item on the 1st of April 2025, which is located in the city of Stirling where Commissioner Shears works. I'm happy to accept that as a perceived impartiality interest unless there's any dissent. Thank you. Commissioners, are there any further declarations of interest? Okay, thank you all. Just also noting that the WAPC is both a landowner and decision maker in relation to the two following items: 4.2 MRS amendment for Brabham and Dayton urban precincts and declaration of planning control area Wilman-Wadandi Highway, which is the item 4.4. So that is an interest in common shared by members and it's not considered to prejudice our ability to determine the matter within the planning. Item 4.1, disclosures of representation. There are 3. First of all, from Commissioner Lakey in relation to 3.1. Commissioner Lakey, the lifting of urban deferment in the MRS for Bullsbrook South Precinct. Commissioner Lakey has declared that as the independent chair of DPLH's Priority Corridor Working Group, Commissioner Lakey engages with the government agencies and proponents regarding the provision of infrastructure in various corridors and projects across Perth, and in this role has met with the proponent to discuss their project in respect to infrastructure and has not received any additional information beyond what is available to the WAPC board. And in relation to 3.2, District Structure Plan North East Baldivis, Commissioner Lakey has also made the same declaration of representation in relation to that item. For myself, in relation to the item 3.2, the District Structure Plan North East Baldivis, I have declared that I've met with the proponent and the consultant in the course of my activities as chairperson of the WAPC, and I have not been provided with any additional information that is not available to the Commission today. Thank you, Commissioners. Any other declarations of representation? Thank you very much. Item 1.5, declaration of due consideration. Can all members indicate they have read and considered today's agenda? Thank you very much all. And questions from members and responses from DPLH staff, just noting that we did have some questions come through from Commissioner Herron that they have been included. In relation to item 6.1, confirmation of the previous minutes of our meeting of Wednesday the 19th of March 2025. Are there any issues to raise or comments in relation to the minutes? Are you happy to adopt as written? If I could please have a mover and seconder. Moved by Commissioner Lakey, seconded by Commissioner Herron. Any dissent? The minutes are carried. Thank you. Well, that then takes us to deputations and presentations. Thank you, Sam.
Chair. Good morning, everyone that is present. Make a deputation to the West Australian Planning Commission meeting either in person or via Zoom this morning. You'll be invited to join the table if you're attending in person this morning or promoted to a panellist at Zoom to deliver your deputation. You have been advised of your allocated time, which will be managed by a timer which will appear on the screen and count down the allocated time. If you have a PowerPoint presentation as part of your deputation this morning, this will be displayed on the screen throughout your deputation. You're requested to advise us as you advance the slides. Our first deputation this morning on item 3.1 on the agenda, which is the lifting of urban deferment in MRS South Precinct. And we're welcoming Rebecca Thompson, David Parsons, Greg Rowe and Rod Dixon. When you're ready. Thanks very much.
Lovely. Good morning, Chair, and thank you for the deputation today. I'm Dave Parsons from Mirvac, joined by our team, the Rowe Group, including Greg Rowe, Rod Dixon, Thompson, and I'd like to take this opportunity as well just to thank DPLH and the officers for the work and their support today from this urban development lifting. Just before I hand over to Rod to talk through some of the particulars, Mirvac have been operating in this corridor now for over 15 years, very much committed to the South Bullsbrook landholding. Whilst we acknowledge the officer's report and recommendation, Mirvac are seeking a level of certainty of the urban classification over the entire land parcel. That aligns to the City of Swan's support and urbanisation, also provides a pathway for Mirvac forward. So I'll hand over to Rod to talk through the presentation in more detail.
Thank you, David. Next slide, please. Chair and Commissioners, thanks for the opportunity. I want to start by acknowledging the officer's report, but conveying to you the key message that we seek urban and development zone over the entirety of the Bullsbrook South precinct. The key messages we want to convey to you today are in seeking that full zoning. We've run a concurrent local structure plan to address all related issues in relation to the precinct in full and to deliver a coordinated vision. We also want to address the nature of the Water Court response and provide far more context to that response. And with that in mind, we say there's no risk to the Commission supporting zoning, noting the staging request. Please. So as you see there, we're seeking the zoning of the land down to Stock Road in its entirety. Next slide, please. That's about 180 hectares. As we set out on this path, noting the need to address servicing and staging, we ran a concurrent local structure plan. You can see there on the left that plan and the associated concept plan that supports it. That structure plan's run through its entire process, advertising, referrals, and is now with the Department planning for assessment and finalisation. It has support across all the agencies, and there are no issues other than servicing and staging, we say. And it provides for the orderly planning of the entire precinct. Next slide, please. What you see here is a response to the staging as communicated by the Water Corporation and alluded to in the report. We acknowledge there's a need to stage the development of this precinct. We seek certainty of zoning structure plan. The 560 lots would be used in the period 26 to 31, having regard to market take-up. The balance of the land requires staging, servicing from the south, and staging would occur in response to that. We acknowledge that. We say there's no immediate cost to government to support the zoning of the land in full and the structure plan in full, conditionally, noting that the structure plan includes provisions in Part 1 that address the staging and the need for sewer, of course, prior to any further approval. Next slide, please. So to reiterate, we're seeking 180 hectares of land supply, having regard to the work that's been done rather than 80. The land's been in the framework since its publication in 2018. The district structure plan was approved at the same time in 2018. The land was zoned urban deferred in 2019. It was included in the Bullsbrook Town Site Development Contribution Plan area in 2020. This has been a long time coming. Next slide, please. We've got a few slides here and I'll move through them quickly for timeliness, but this plan illustrates the context in which the northeast corridor areas are to be serviced. So sewer is required to run up from Ellenbrook through the North Ellenbrook growth areas, the employment lands, and up to Bullsbrook South, and you can see Bullsbrook South on the right-hand side there. 560 lots is serviced from the north of Bullsbrook South precinct, the balance through this infrastructure. Importantly, it services 18 to 23,000 dwellings. Next slide, please. Water Corporation actually has a position, so this is not alluded to in their response. This is their plan that was published in 2023, or provided in 2023, I should say. You can see where Bullsbrook South is. The infrastructure alignment, their preferred alignment, runs up from Ellenbrook through the growth areas to Bullsbrook South, picks up on the employment land as well. Next slide, please. BPLH has hosted a working group with the other developers in this corridor participating in their consultants and assisting Water Corp to look at both alternate route alignments that could be delivered in a timely manner. Next slide, please. As well as investigating key pinch points along that. The Corporation expressed concern around getting through. Next slide, please. And included those developers providing their developers' intentions for staging, noting the need for this infrastructure to be delivered. State government announced in January funding for key corridor infrastructure to be delivered. That's capital being allocated to this project. Investigation work is ongoing. So in essence, we say we seek the zoning of the land in its entirety. Development zone. Considerable amount of technical work has been done to inform the local structure plan in its entirety. And in order to deliver that vision, we need both approved for completeness. We acknowledge the need for staging of the land. We reiterate that the balance infrastructure is not required until 2032 and is needed for the broader whole. They don't acknowledge that. With that said, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Rod. I'll go to questions now, see if there are any from Commission members. Go ahead, Commissioner Hall.
Thanks, Chair. Just wondering if your request, the whole area, was made to the department officers and what the response that you received.
Yes, the response was, the application was for the precinct in full down to Stock Road. Structure plans being expressed for that same area. I suppose I have to acknowledge that the departmental staff are having to grapple with a response from the Water Corporation and round that out, you might say. But what you saw is a reaction to the Water Corporation response rather than a reflection of our submission. Makes sense.
Anything further, Commissioner Hall? Any further questions? Rod, just for, sorry, go, Commissioner.
It's probably not really a question, but so the commission, if the commission were to support your position and put a condition on, or some way create a position where you can't undertake subdivision until such time as we're provided.
We have written into part 1 of the local structure plan provisions that really speak to that. We've wholeheartedly acknowledged that. What we're seeking is zoning and structure plan certainty to deliver Mirvac's vision.
So, Rod, it probably doesn't need to be stated, but just for absolute clarity, you understand that funding has not been committed to for the broader works plan of Water Corp.
We understand that.
The unfunded infrastructure.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we do understand that, fully acknowledge that.
Thank you. Any further questions? No. Thank you very much for your deputation.
Very much.
Sorry, just very quickly.
Sorry, Damien, if you wouldn't mind, sorry, Miss Damien Hill from.
No, that wasn't for, sorry, the delegation. Just very quickly, I think Liam Connell's sitting in the attendees list. Can we just have him promoted to panelist, please, Secretariat? So, thank you.
Sorry, Damien. Okay, yep.
Yep, thank
Liam
you.
has accepted the request now to be promoted. Yep.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Damien.
Thanks, Damien, and thanks, Chair.
Welcome.
Thank you. Deputation this morning is on 3.2 on the agenda, the district structure plan at North East Baldivis, and we're welcoming Andrew Trussick from the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale via Zoom.
Lakey, oh no, sorry, item.
Good morning.
Good morning, Andrew, and welcome to the Planning Commission meeting this morning.
Thank you.
We will bring up your PowerPoint presentation and invite you to commence your deputation. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a deputation which offers some conditional support and recommendations for the North East Baldivis District Structure Plan. Next slide, please. So the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale directly adjoins this precinct to the east, and we're really cognizant of the strategic role that Mundijong Road is playing now and will play significantly into the future when we contemplate its connectivity between AUKUS Westport, back to Kwinana Freeway, across to the new Tonkin Highway extension, which has just commenced delivery further across the Southwest Highway and then via Jarrahdale Road linking through to Albany Highway. So as a road that is connecting east-west between significant freight and transport corridors, and the connectivity being obviously a really important part of helping link prosperous areas together, we were really cognizant to make a recommendation about preserving and giving a really clear indication to the proponents that there is a need to plan for Mundijong Road to evolve into a primary regional road. And we believe through doing that, we give the greatest opportunity for this development, as well as the broader sub-region, to be working effectively. So that's our first recommendation, that we signal the importance and that the DSP reflect the need for, whether it's a PCA or a future reservation, to protect the primary regional road status of Mundijong Road. Next slide, please. The floodplain management is an interesting one. It is quite illuminating to see the amount of land allocated to manage regional flood risk. Certainly with the issues of declining rainfall, but more climate variability. We are mindful just to check with respect of how floodwaters are being managed, whether it's the most effective approach in order to do that, given, I guess, some 30 to 40% of the land being ultimately kept away or kept back from being able to be urbanised, and whether there are other options to explore and contemplate better management of the floodplain, and whether that's a broader piece of work in terms of the Pilharvey catchment also. We note that ultimately the Shire has a large amount of its developed land on the Swan Coastal Plain, and so anything that is undertaken on this land could have an upland effect on us as well. So we're just sort of thinking about whether we've got the right balance in terms of floodwater management at this stage. Next slide, please. The interface to the freight rail, again, we don't necessarily know clearly what the future opportunities may come with the freight rail. We do have large utilisation via Alcoa currently. We also have utilisation by trains that are servicing Boddington. And so we were just thinking about what that interface to the train line or the freight line ought to be. And in our sub-region, employment is a big challenge for us. Certainly in the Shire, we're sort of growing year on year 5%, and we're not achieving the same growth in local jobs. So we saw this as a potential opportunity to maybe preserve some interfacing land to the freight rail corridor that could provide the job opportunities that 6,000 further dwellings in this precinct will certainly benefit from. Next slide, please. The neighbourhood centre, we noted, I guess it's that tension between its position being central to the neighbourhoods it's serving versus what we often find businesses striving for in terms of a location along a major road. Back to my earlier point about needing to really carefully protect Mundijong Road as a primary regional road, and particularly we see that as a road that needs to quickly evolve into state government control, so main roads control. So the idea of having a land use that will need a high degree of accessibility along a primary regional road creates a little bit of tension, and we sort of thought whether there's the opportunity to centralise the neighbourhood centre within the precinct. Next slide, please. The school sites, like everything, I guess, our involvement with Department of Education has been looking carefully at where we're allocating land for our high schools, and we just made the observation that ensuring the school location is optimised based on the needs of residents. Also looking at how it relates to the management of surrounding land, and we just noted that in this case, a large piece of, I guess, the surrounding precinct is sort of separated from direct accessibility to the school from the floodplain issue, and so whether the school is correctly located in terms of accessibility to the majority of the urban areas that would be developed. Next slide, please. And that's all I wanted to present. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for your deputation. It's Emma Cole speaking. I will go to commission members to see if there are any questions of you. Commission members, go ahead, Commissioner Heron.
Thank you. Andrew, in relation to the Mundijong Road issue, obviously there is a decision which will relate to Main Roads WA. Has there been dialogue at a regional level in terms of this particular issue and the potential elevation of Mundijong Road?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Certainly our CEO and Shire President have been, I guess, partnering with the Mayor and CEO at the City of Rockingham, and both have advocated directly to Deputy Premier and Minister for Transport on the need for Mundijong Road to really be that next key east-west primary regional road link, now that we have certainty on the Tonkin Highway project being essentially up and running within 3 years following its construction. The Minister / Deputy Premier certainly took that issue carefully on board, and I understand Main Roads WA are also aware of the issue, and I sort of see they've made a similar position in terms of the understanding the primary role and the need to preserve the flexibility that will, in our minds, change Mundijong Road to become a much higher order road with regard to managing the growth, the enterprise, the jobs that will be reliant on it.
May, through the chair, in relation to the issue you raised on the neighbourhood, I mean, obviously from a contemporary planning perspective, having neighbourhood centres located along major arterials has tended to predominate. The driver whereby you think that needs to be more centralised is basically what I understand from your submission.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So can you just expand upon what the concern is in terms of the current proposed location on Mundijong Road? Is it purely a catchment perspective?
Yeah, it's a balance of both. The catchment and the proximity to the urban areas, I think, is probably from a planner's perspective, that's probably one of my first concerns. Having a major element of mixed use located more centrally and somewhat proximate to the education precinct, and which would have some other elements like sporting facilities in sort of a mixed use sort of central node. That would be, I guess, a predominant planning thought. I think the second one, though, is how that could frustrate the role of Mundijong Road being for mobility versus no doubt a business who would invest in that centre would be trying to maximise as many driveways, access points for customers on and off the road. And I think we would much rather prioritise protection of Mundijong Road for mobility, and we would have real significant concerns if this was used as a way of actually not elevating Mundijong Road into the responsibility of Main Roads, WA, which we think it absolutely has to be. So yeah, just sort of basically trying to indicate that there is a strategic freight/road sort of connection.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Andrew? Okay, thank you. And also just to flag that we do Justin McCurdy from the Department of Transport as an observer today, and we will pick up the issues that you've raised around Mundijong Road with Justin when we come to discuss the item. So thank you, Andrew. You've made your points very clearly today.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Deputation this morning on the same item, item 3.2. We are welcoming Daniel Martinovich, Damien Shepherd, who are all here in person, and we're welcoming Shane McSweeney over Zoom. I can see that Shane is online. Shane, if you are online and hear us, can you please turn your video on so other members of the commission may see you on the screen? Thank you very much, Shane. Good morning to you all. Over to you when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and WAPC Commission members. So my name's Damien Shepherd, Development Director at Stockland, and with me I've got Daniel Martinovich of CLE and Cole Dutton, WA General Manager for Stockland, and Shane McSweeney of Pentium's also on the line to field any questions should they arise. I think most of you would know us by now. We were here back in December when the structure plan was presented for approval the first time. So it was a district structure plan that's been in the system now for some 2 years, lodged in the middle of 2023. Thank you for the opportunity to make the deputation today. In summary, we're supportive of the content and recommendation of the report, and we thank the officers for all the time that they've diligently put into this. In our mind, today's item is quite straightforward. Back in December, the Commission resolved to support the district structure plan subject to a defined set of modifications, and those modifications have now all been made, and it's on that basis now that we're seeking final approval of the structure plan. Since then, we've also had a bulk earthworks DA approved on the project, and that'll be starting as soon as we can clear the conditions of that approval. So we've got a circa $21 million contract that it's been awarded, and that'll be starting any day, any week now, as soon as we can clear those conditions. And we also expect you'll be seeing more of us. So we expect to be back here next month when the MRS amendments for this same area will be presented for consideration, and that will also involve taking the first local structure plan to urban, which will unlock about 1,000 watts an hour, allow us to get on with it and start delivering some much needed housing supply into the market. And now I'll pass over to Dan to take you through some of the details of the modifications that were made.
Thanks, Damien, and thank you for the opportunity to present. Next slide, please. So as mentioned by Damien, all modifications to the district structure plan have been made in accordance with the WAPC's resolution from December of last year. On screen is the modified DSP map, with the key modifications being the relocated high school and district open space, which I'll discuss in more detail on the next slide. The land subject to investigation by Main Roads WA to accommodate the future widening of Mundijong Road is shown on the map and is discussed in the report. The report part 1 talks about that land being held in the urban deferred zone to allow the further work that's required by Main Roads to define the width of that road to happen without prejudicing the outcome. The requirement to investigate a potential for a crossing over the rail freight line to the north is illustrated on the plan and specified in the district structure plan reports, and the indicative livestock buffer from the facility to the south of Mundijong Road has been expanded. Importantly, the DSP reports have also been updated to reflect the public ownership of the multiple use corridors. Next slide, please. As the Commission will recall, there was discussion at the December meeting and a resolution item that the district open space be relocated with the high school and that it be hydrologically unconstrained. We wish to clarify and confirm with the Commission that this was and will be the case. The slide on screen shows a cross-section through the district open space within the multiple use corridor, showing that only the lower sections of the flood corridor will accommodate drainage during frequent rainfall events. These are depicted by the pink and the dark blue lines to the right of screen. Under these scenarios, the district open space will be dry and usable. As shown by the top line on the cross-section in light blue, The district open space playing fields will only accommodate flood storage in the 1% AEP event, which is previously referred to as the 1 in 100 year rainfall event. This is the least frequent event used in the design of parks and public open space, and as such, the proposal is consistent with standard practice and livable neighbourhoods, whereby land accommodating the 1% event receives a full POS credit. This provides for the most efficient use of land within the multiple use corridors, consistent with established practice. Next slide, please. As outlined in the agenda report, the District Water Management Strategy, or DWMS, is close to being finalised. As at the last Commission meeting in December, updating the DWMS based on the public ownership of the multiple use corridors was the final matter to be resolved. However, the Department of Water has subsequently raised an additional matter which has necessitated a review of the modelling. We're confident this will not require changes to the DSP, allowing any updates to the District Water Management Strategy to be administered as part of the rezoning process, as recommended in the agenda report. Management of the multiple use corridors has also substantially progressed since December and is being driven by the Department of Planning across other state government agencies. Significant progress has been made, with the Water Corporation agreeing to seek ministerial support to fulfil the role as an interim drainage service provider, alleviating the potential risk of unmanaged land. Importantly, the modified district structure plan now refers to public ownership of the corridors, directly addressing the previous stakeholder concerns regarding the private ownership scenario. So in closing, the purpose of today's decision by the Commission is to determine whether the modifications adopted at the December meeting of last year have been addressed. As outlined in the officer report and our deputation today, all modifications have been actioned. We therefore request the WAPC grant final approval to the modified DSP. We'd be happy to answer any questions the Commission may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel, Damien and Cole. I'll open up for questions, Commission members.
Thank you. Through the chair, could I just ask, in terms of the, you've obviously covered off a number of areas and I appreciate your limited time in presentation. The rail crossing investigation area, can you just expand upon that in terms of what the discussions have been and what the, I suppose, what provision has been made in the revised DSP?
It's the provision. So the map specifies the location with which the crossing will be investigated. And as you may recall, the discussion from the December meeting was that this was at the request of Main Roads, who wanted the ability to explore a crossing of the Farrell Rate Line as part of the broader movement network. So the first step is showing on the map. The second step is requiring at the local structure plan stage, which that particular location is in precinct 2. So at the time that local structure plan is prepared, further discussions need to be had with Main Roads, with the adjoining local governments, proponents, the traffic modelling done, engineering work done to determine whether actually a grade separated crossing can occur over the freight line. So it will be dealt with as part of the local structure planning process.
Thank you. Through the chair, if I can just, and I know that it's not necessarily upon you, but I'm assuming as part of that, that Main Roads are also then liaising with the city of Kwinana, and because obviously there's two sides to a crossing.
That particular item would necessitate discussions between both local governments, City of Rockingham and City of.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Sandra.
Thank you. Thank you for the deputation. Just a question probably from the preceding deputy regarding Mundijong Road. Obviously, you got to identify it as a potential primary distributor road, a regional road, sorry, which is good. But just noting that particularly in the district structure plan, you do have residential that lines Mundijong Road currently, and then you've got the multiple use corridor that sits above it. Have you looked at, in terms of modelling, whether that residential component would still be in play if the road was converted to a primary distributor?
In terms of modelling, do you mean traffic modelling or?
No, in terms of the
design?
size. So in terms of the distances and the size of the road.
The size of the road is basically determined by Main Roads. So we've been liaising with them since the end of December 2022. To echo the sentiments of the previous presenter, everyone appreciates the importance of Mundijong Road. Main Roads just weren't in a position to determine how wide it needed to be and what role it would ultimately fulfil that fit in with the broader east-west connection to the outer harbour. So with that determined, we actually, when we presented to the Commission meeting in December, that widening is still yet to be determined by Main Roads. They subsequently provided very specific advice that it needed to be a 5-metre corridor, which is what's been provided. And so that land will be held in the urban deferred zone in the final determination of the reservation width.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, just to understand the modified structure plan map, where you've got the other regional road reserve identified along Mundijong Road, is that 95 or is it where the dotted line is for the
Yes.
region?
So the blue line is the current other regional road reserve. The dashed blue line is the area that's to be held back pending further investigations by Main Roads.
Yeah, so so with reference to that, you've got residential that sits in between where that dash line is and the multiple use. Just questioning whether you've looked at how that would work. Because the residential area is quite lean through there if the road was expanded.
Yeah, look, I think the scale's quite deceptive. There's still a significant amount of residential that sits within that precinct there. When you think that Brown in total is around 6,000 lots, I think it is still a significant portion of lots, and we're comfortable that it is workable and appropriate.
Yeah, and so we've obviously the land that we control from a Stockland perspective in LSP1, yes, we have done detailed design within that area. The land further to the east in precinct 2, that's controlled by other landowners, but I suppose to Damien's point, still fit some cell depths in there because the scale is deceptive.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah. Commissioner Hall?
Thank you, Chair. Just wondering, Daniel, if you have a view on how wide Mundijong Road should be?
It depends the role that it's going to fulfill in the end. So we have a view on what it needs to be to service our traffic generation, which was in the 40 to 60 metre range. Obviously, anything beyond that means it's fulfilling a broader regional function, and that can only be determined by the state based on their broader modelling.
Probably the other part that I'd say is a benchmark I use is Kwinana Freeway. There's lots of sections of that that fit within 40 metres. So I think 88 that's provisioned was far more than enough, but it was quarantined for now until it is confirmed, and then whatever is not needed can be clawed back for residential.
Commissioners, any further questions? Look, I think you've covered off most of the issues raised by Andrew from SSJ, but I just wanted to raise the issue of the neighbourhood centre. Would you like to respond to that matter that was raised in terms of its location?
I think, as the presenter suggested, there is a range of competing objectives as to where neighbourhood centres go and the role they're going to fulfil. I would also flag that there is a local centre central to the district structure plan that's planned as well that will fulfil the walkable daily shopping needs of residents. The neighbourhood centre, the location that's proposed allows it to be larger and brought online sooner, and therefore providing a broader range of services to future residents and other catchments within that corridor.
Any last questions? All right, we thank you for your deputation.
This morning is on item 4.1 on the agenda, the MRS Amendment 1344/57 Maida Vale Urban Precinct. And we are welcoming Rod Dixon and John Roth. Both. We will be now and invite deputation. Thank you. Sorry, the chair has conflict of interest on this item, so she has stepped out. So Deputy Chair, Commissioner Herron.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry. I apologise.
Good morning, Deputy Chair and other commissioners. My name is John Roth. I'm Director of M Group, land developer, and proponent of this amendment. And next to me is Rod Dixon, who you've already heard from today and probably be hearing from later on from Road Group. Our background of this project is only 5 years long. The request to initiate was nearly 10 years ago. When we came into it, we were attracted to the site because it represented an infill location that was surrounded by established urban areas. It was just in front of the foothills, 5 kilometres from Perth Airport, within 15 kilometres from the CBD, and represented an opportunity to do something very different than what we've seen as far as large scale urban expansion within the Perth area. Over the last 5 years, we've been through a very detailed and somewhat arduous environmental approval process, which then resulted in a final approval that came through January this year. We have approximately 30 hectares out of the 170 hectares under our control. And as this progresses through a rezoning, our intention is to assemble more land over the coming years. The site is certainly strategic, as I mentioned it before, and there is an opportunity for at least 1,700 lots of much needed housing supply to be provided into that Perth market, and certainly on an infill basis. We'll go into more detail on the planning process that's been completed to date through Rod's presentation. However, we're very confident that the plans we're proposing not only will offer something very different into the market, but also preserve, conserve, and a combination of green space and conservation areas in excess of 30% of the site for protection. Throughout the process, we've regularly engaged with all landowners that have been affected. This is a combination of obviously door knocking and individual meetings, presentations through the council, but also regular community forums, some of which have been attended with in excess of over 100 landowners and neighbouring community members. The process, we wouldn't be where we are unless it was certainly supported by all agency staff through this journey. And we're very confident that what's now proposed and what is now being recommended in the planning commission will then provide us the necessary steps to then finalise the detailed structure plan and move it forward. And ideally, in the perfect world, we'll be turning dirt in hopefully less than 2 years' time. We do have 6 minutes, so obviously I'm available for answering any questions from the developer's perspective, and I'll hand over to Rod.
All right, thanks, Johnny. Deputy Chair, Commissioners, thanks for the chance to speak to you. I want to start by just making clear our request that we seek support for urban zoning and development zone of the land concurrently. The key messages we want to leave with you today are the land is identified in the sub-regional planning framework. As John has said, it has been through an arduous environmental review process leading to where we are now. We need the zoning outcome in order to progress the local structure plan to provide that bit of power. Next slide, please. Land's really well located. It's been identified in the framework since its publication in 2018. Essentially infill development, as John alluded to. Next slide, please. The concept plan you see there was included in the environment. John has touched on some of this, but the key messages I'd leave with you are during the period 2018 to 2023, we went through an arduous process of surveying and resurveying to achieve an environmental review document that was considered acceptable for advertising. Advertising occurred concurrently with the MRSMM. We now have a statement, environmental condition statement, that the scheme may be implemented, published in January. Next slide, please. As John alluded to, there's been a fair amount of work done to engage with the community wherever possible. This is a snapshot from nativeisle.south.com.au website that was put together to ensure the community could have a single point of access to either the Commission's advertising, the EPA's advertising, the review, or the City of Calamunda's frequently asked questions, and then make submissions as they see fit, in addition to any of the community workshops that were held. Next slide, please. You can see Maida Vale as a precinct there in the red on the right, well located. There'll eventually be, it's expected, a flyover over the right highway connecting it to the High Wycombe station, and in delivering 1,700 lots of land supply over time, we say extremely well located. Next slide, please. So in essence, we want to leave you with a few messages that really there are no environmental considerations outstanding that would preclude the urban and development zoning of the land. Similarly, there are no legal considerations. There are no appeals or reviews or other matters outstanding. Planning considerations through the referral process, we have support from everyone, including the City of Kalamunda, with concurrent local zoning. And from an implementation point of view, we need, as I say, the zoning to provide the head of power for that structure plan which will address the environmental condition statement, condition elements. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. There's any questions?
Yes. Yeah, and just a clarification, so you're seeking urban or urban deferred?
The amendment was initiated as going to urban deferred, but with the passing of time over 7 years, we've been able to address all matters, and we are seeking an urban zoning with associated concurrent local scheme zoning for development zone.
Any further questions? Yes, thank you, Deputy Chair. You used the word arduous several times to describe the environmental process. Can you just give me a little bit more to understand that? And if you want to draw on a specific example or specific aspect to help me to understand what that actually means.
I guess in a nutshell, it shouldn't take so many years for that process to occur. And that was a mix of a very broad scoping document being published for the environmental review. So a lot of back and forth to achieve a settled position on what that environmental review document should include. And that included the surveying and resurveying different parts of the precinct.
Yeah, I'd add to it, when we got involved, there was environmental assessment investigations being completed several years prior to, and then during that process, the EPA had provided the guidelines on how that assessment should take place. Our initial advice and response was, well, there's nothing to see here because nothing has changed. However, to cross every T and dot every I, we then 18 months going back, completing that survey work, nothing changed. Of course, Black Hawk 2s became the forefront. The outcome didn't change either. But at least it meant that we went into the EPA with that final review work as bulletproof as possible.
Thank you. And just to go back on the urban deferred and urban. So between what additional information would you, if it went to urban deferred, what additional information would you have you not provided to date in terms of detailed reports analysis to go to urban?
Obviously, we're not privy to the report and recommendation, but we've sought an urban zoning outcome with concurrent local scheme zoning to get on with the structure plan. The reasons for initiating the amendment as going to urban deferred related to transport and servicing primarily. Those matters have been dealt with to a level, we say, that allow for the urban zoning to occur. So servicing can occur in stage manner in conjunction with the structure plan. Watercorp have supported that position. The City of Kalamunda have supported an urban zoning with concurrent local scheme zoning. So we believe we've addressed those matters.
Following on from that, in terms of your discussions with the department, were they clear on that being your preference now, going to urban?
Certainly, I believe so, yes. Yeah.
Has there sort of been a dialogue with the department around that?
So, yeah, we've been very clear in seeking that.
Thank you. I was about to say through the chair, but I am it. I just have a couple of questions in terms of to urban, in terms of the LSP process, which will clearly be the next step. In terms of staging or precincting, has any of that been considered?
It has at a high level. Likely require staging to occur from initially the south, but then potentially from the north, just in terms of the availability of services, and then the central catchment extension of service. Watercorp acknowledge that it is capable of being delivered. It's not a significant trunk main that will preclude the zoning. And Watercorp will probably have a response to that that supports an urban zoning. It's the City of Kalamunda.
Okay, thank you. And the second one is obviously significant land being required for purposes in terms of coordination acquisition. I mean, this is incredibly well located, but has the challenge of high fragmentation. In the discussions with the City of Kalamunda, mechanisms around managing and staging that land acquisition, has that been a subject of conversation, or is that something you see being dealt with through the LSP process?
It's a little bit of both. Some of those conversations have naturally occurred already with a view to what the structure plan might need to address. The environmental condition statement speaks to certain levels of retention. And again, that is over a mixture of both land acquired or under option or yet to be acquired. Those conversations are occurring in the city.
Thank you. If there were no further questions, I will say thank you very much for your deputation. Okay. I will await the return of the chair, I think. Grab it. Where is back to you?
Very much. We can ask you.
We move now on to deputations on item 4 on the agenda, the MRS Amendment 1421 in Brabham and Dayton urban precincts. Well, the first deputation is from Sue Conlon from the Urban Bushland Council. Good morning, Sue. We'll bring us the PowerPoint presentation and invite you to make sure you're ready.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Sue Conlon from the Urban Bushland Council, and I'm speaking for the planned and endorsed conservation estate, including their ecological linkages, which are the primary planning consideration. Next. Lot 94 makes up most of the MRS amendment being considered today. It's clearly identified in the Perth Appeal at 3.5 million, the North East Sub-Regional Framework 2018 as Parks and Recreation. Next. Now here we're looking at the Sub-Regional Planning Framework 2018. You can see the ecological linkage with the green dot. The large green is Whiteman Park, and at the bottom of that it goes across to Lot 94 and the Bush Forever 200. Lot 94 was formalised part of Whiteman Park, and in 1994 was endorsed as the government's linkage to one of the few remnant southern complexes remaining within the metro region. So that's 1990. In 1996, this regionally significant land of Whiteman Park and Bush Forever 200 was identified because of the 80-hectare Banksia woodland in the Bush Forever 200, and in 2000, it was endorsed as Bush Forever, both Whiteman Park Bush Forever and the Bush Forever 200. The Bush Forever 200 was protected in 2016 as Banksia Woodlands, and it was federally listed, and it was threatened with extinction. In 2004, the linkages from Whiteman Park and to Bush Forever 200 were endorsed with the Perth Regional Ecological Linkage Project, and it was it was identified as link 32, and it was then to cross over, as you can see, to the Swan River, and it's got the dots to the riparian zone there that help that ecological linkage. Next. This is a close-up of Whiteman Park and Bush Forever and the Lot 94. And most of the designated linkage 32, not all of it, I mean, it has basically been destroyed because of the infrastructure that has gone in with the Metronet and the very wide Drumpelia Road. Next, please. So where that arrow was pointing, we're looking west now to Whiteman Park train station. The trees on the right, the mature dying trees on the right, were to be retained in that TOD. But you can see they're dying because the approved drainage was not sufficient. The green on the left looks nice now, but that will go with the stage 3. So you can see here that nature is losing and livability. I just want to say that UBC have close to 100 volunteer member groups, and they're looking after our Perth Conservation Estate, generously donating their time, knowing that our planning system has identified our regionally significant remnants and their ecological linkages. Removing this linkage from Whiteman Park across to the Swan River impacts all our groups because we're all connected through these linkages. So today is an opportunity to instate an ecological corridor, which now has to be through Lot 94. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Sue. Before you head off, I'll just see whether the commission members have any questions for you. Go ahead.
Through the chair, just because you obviously touch on the fact that there's a highway and railway that has gone through. In relation to therefore the relative benefit of that linkage, can you just perhaps touch on why you feel that that is still a valuable proposition?
Yes, and that's a very good question because Jan was actually going to speak, because for that to be viable, we need a wildlife overpass.
Thank you for that.
And there is another one.
Yes.
Thank you, Sue. I'm assuming there are no further questions. Thank you all. Thanks, Sue.
The next section is from Harry.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Harry Gratt, Swan Valley farmer, agronomist, and interested in particularly water and environment. 1421 water management. The site requires extensive fill and subsoil drainage. I grew up there. The site's wet, always wet. You walk there, it's dry now, but there's shallow groundwater. So far, groundwater management in the northeast corridor, I'm talking Caversham, Dayton, Brabham, and Henley Brook has failed. There is significant off-site and even on-site rising groundwater. If you go to the graph 4, here's a few copies to hand around. It's hard to read that on the screen, if you'd like. This is bore 4. It's on a tree farm, Shironai run. And you can see 2015 is down the bottom. The blue at the top, I think it's 2014. And the one that's not completed on the left is 2025. We're suffering an offsite effect, and I'm talking several hundred metres from Dayton, a groundwater rise of over a metre. It's now costing us, and we're suffering. The high groundwater is supported by clay, and movement can only be down gradient, not vertically down. So it goes left and right. That's all known science, and it can be, if you want to know more, look in the Northeast Corridor urban water management strategy. Helen Brooks is your expert in that area. 3.2 of that report, last dated 2023, so it's current. Water quality management. The management of water quality quantity in the Northeast Corridor has the twin objectives of maintaining the pre-development hydrological regime and the ecological water requirements for the receiving environment. Well, that's a fail. And the protection of property and infrastructure by the safe conveyance of excess runoff from the extreme event, and I include groundwater and runoff. This includes the protection of property infrastructure within the Northeast Corridor area, as well as downstream, and so needs to consider the impacts of peak discharge from the study area. In the Northeast Corridor, that's also a fail. Can we go to the next slide, please? You can see the top one is a road in Dayton. You can't see the road, it's flooded. That's rising groundwater. The bottom left, rising, this is Henley Brook, rising groundwater, right, rising groundwater. Next one, please. Same again. We've got another one, I think. Now, these are trees up in the development area, and on the left, they're flooded. You can see, and those trees will take that for a period of time, not forever. On the right is Eucalyptus todtiana, really drought tolerant, killed by dewatering or rising water table. And the one on the bottom is just dead trees, again, rising water table. Tree roots don't live underwater. They need oxygen. It's called respiration. So the Banksia woodland of Bush River Site 200 will be killed by even a small rise in groundwater, and that adjoins Bush River 200. The bush will die, and then the animals will die through lack of food and habitat. I once said that to the City of Swan when we met them on the east side, and they said to us, well, if that happens, we'll learn from that. And if that's the level of science we're putting into this, it's appalling. City of Swan get to demonstrate they can provide a drainage plan that does not have severe offside effects. If you approve 1421, condition of drainage must be extreme and must be backed up by ongoing monitoring to protect Bush River Site 200. Subsoil drains are in the long term going to fail. They're shallow, they're on road verges. Trees get planted on road verges and they'll all block up eventually. There's going to be tens or hundreds of kilometres out there of these drains, and the City of Swan will then have to rectify them. And they'll only have to rectify them when we get a wet spot or rising dam. So the damage is done. City of Swan won't have the logistics or the financial capability to do that task. It's just an ongoing problem.
Noting you've had an extra almost 2 minutes, so if you could make your concluding statement.
One last sentence. Is this a waste of my time? Then in public interest, my only option is to communicate information to a wider audience. And that might be a group class action up the North East Corridor. Thank you very much.
Harry, and it's not a waste of your time. It's important that you've taken the opportunity to make deputation, and we're listening to the information that you've provided to us. Commission members, are there any questions? Yes, Commissioner Sandry.
Thank you. Thank you for your deputation. Just in relation to the graph that you presented, where was the property at the start it was taken from?
This is east of Melbourne Street, which runs off Harrow Street.
And how far is it away from the subject site?
About 200 to 300 metres.
And how was it, just to clarify, how was this data collected? Through the chair.
That was me. And why did I start in 2014? Because I didn't trust the process to get it right. And it's exactly what's happened.
And sorry, through the chair, how are you collecting the data?
It's monitoring bores. They're only a few metres deep. About 2.5.
And sorry, Chair, one other question.
Keep going.
Is that a single bore on the site that you're monitoring?
No, we have multiple bores. That's just a good example, that one.
And the other bores on the site, are they demonstrating the same?
Very similar trends. Thanks a lot.
Harry, any further questions for Harry? Thank you. We do appreciate your deputation.
On the same item is from Humphrey.
Waiting for the.
Yep, sorry, we'll just bring up your presentation and then invite you to commence the queue. Over to you when you're ready. Thank you.
I'm coming back to the regional ecological linkages. Sometimes people call that environmental corridors or whatever. It doesn't really matter. On the left, you see the whole linkage system around Whiteman Park and the area we're talking about. And then the dark highlighted is the linkage that Sue talked about earlier on. Now, that is the only linkage between Whiteman Park and the Swan River. If we cut that, if we break that, then there is no linkage from the Whiteman Park to the Swan River, and there is no east-west linkage for 16 kilometers from Guildford to north of Ellenbrook. Next one, please. As you all know, that the WEPC has lots of regulations and laws and whatever to deal with to protect the environment. One example of protecting the environment is the black cockatoos, and they're under threat. They are unique to WA, and therefore the onus is on the WAPC to protect them. At the moment, the black cockatoos are forced to roost and forage in non-native and exotic trees. They basically have to eat junk food to supplement what they can't get in the natural environment. So that is an important thing. And as you can see here at the bottom, the EPA says that the black cockatoos need to be fully protected. Next one, please. So in a climate emergency, the WAPC has to give environmental arguments much greater weight than any of the other environments and any other factors when it determines the outcome. And it is like, you know, you have a building on fire and there is somebody tells the firefighter, oh, you can't touch that because it otherwise might get waterlogged. And in the meantime, nothing is done and the whole thing involves in fire and is wasted. And that is if we accept the proposal, that's what happened. And therefore we request that the WAPC reject the proposal to the amendment.
Thank you very much, Humphrey. Commission members, any questions for Humphrey? We don't have any questions, but thank you for your question.
The next deputation on the same item is from Jan Zek. Welcome, Jan.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to make this deputation. Can I have the first slide, please?
Okay, so would you just bear with us one moment, just bring up your PowerPoint presentation. And over to you. Thanks, Jen.
We recognise the need for more housing, especially well-planned and effective transit-orientated development. Over 1,000 hectares is planned for urban development between Nangara Road and Reid Highway. Despite early commitments, along with federal agreements and state planning instruments endorsed by the WAPC, the EPA and West Australian Government, not one ecological linkage has been provided between the Swan River and Whiteman Park. We are asking for Lot 94 and the section of the transit corridor coinciding with its western boundary, only 13 hectares, to be retained as a linkage for the protection of Bush Forever 200. This is only 1% of the land being urbanised here. Bush Forever 200 is classified high conservation value, unmodified and older growth area and is particularly important for protection and management. Bush Forever 200 Banksia woodlands are highly significant. The last patch within the corridor which has not been burnt for the last 50 years. Every relevant environmental planning instrument supports the establishment of an ecological linkage between Bush Forever 304 in Whiteman Park and Bush Forever 200. Protection of Banksia woodlands is so critical it extends to utilising linkages which contain only remnants of native vegetation and mature isolated trees. Reconstructed habitats have also been endorsed. The EPBC Conservation Advice for Banksia woodlands requires a buffer of greater than 50 metres for patches of high conservation significance, particularly where there is significant risk of adverse impact from hydrological modification. In light of Harry's deputation, Bush Forever 200 Banksias will be at risk of significant adverse impacts from changed hydrology, along with threats from proximity to urbanisation. The loss of these Banksia woodlands would be catastrophic for the environment, particularly the black cockatoos, the local landscape amenity and the state government's reputation. There is no capacity to offset the loss of 130 hectares of valuable Bush Forever 200 bushland or 80 hectares of high quality Banksia woodlands. Some adverse impacts can be mitigated by ensuring an effective and substantial corridor is provided. Lot 94 contains about 100 mature trees, many of which are black cockatoo habitat, 12 potential nesting trees. Rehabilitation will be required with existing trees providing structure and ongoing habitat. 2 wildlife overpasses similar to those over Chunkin Highway and the Wanneroo rail line will be required. The rezoning of Lot 94, along with the portion of the former transit corridor to urban, is not consistent with any relevant Commonwealth or state agreement, legislation, urban regulation or planning instrument. The opposite is true. They all support the retention and the application of parks and recreation zoning. Can I have the next slide, please? In the event the commission does not, in the event the commission decides not to support our position, we request swapping the northern portion of the native vegetation retention area in lot 95, about 2.8 hectares, containing 4 black cockatoo potential nesting trees, with the southern portion of lot 94, along with the corresponding transit corridor land, about 4.4 hectares. Can I have the next slide, please? I think they speak for themselves. I won't go and talk about those. About 2/3 of lot 94 would remain for urban development. This swap would free up land in lot 95, which is immediately adjacent to the train station, a premium location for higher density development. The southern portion of lot 94 is between 950 to 1100 metres away from the station. Can I have the next slide, please?
Jan, just checking how much longer you have to go.
About 3 sentences.
Okay, continue.
This swap would gain significant credit with the DCCEEW, providing linkage between Bush Forever sites, the same number of potential nesting trees, six mature marries, 4 stags and 9 melaleucas, more area for rehabilitation, more opportunity for tree canopy development and dispersal of biota. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jan. Commission members, are there any questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Adair.
Thank you.
Heron.
Jan, and look, I just wanted to hear all the deputations before I ask questions, so this may not be you, but
I'll try.
yes, and this is not intended to be flippant at all.
Mm-hmm.
Just given what Mr. Gratz said, Grat, this, like, if the water is already rising and we've already got an issue, and so all of that is the case, the positions that you're putting forward, are they a solution? Because are the trees going to survive given the urbanisation of this area anyway?
The trees in Bush Forever 200?
Yeah.
I'm staggered. I think I'm staggered that you would. I'm staggered.
This is a larger picture, isn't it?
That is, it is, and it's of great concern that if we think that they'll get waterlogged anyway or they'll die, is that a solution?
No, and that's why I said it's not flippant. This is actually a serious question. I'm not saying, I'm not preempting anything. It is actually just a question.
Yes, if the water table rises significantly or if there are too many changes to the hydrology, yes, they will die. What we'll lose in that is so important that I don't think any of us could actually contemplate that we would do that. That there are significant problems with the water in the northeast corridor. And everyone in the area is talking about it. People that I've seen just off the street talk about how much water there's been through there. And last year was just mind-blowing. I've lived in the area for over 35 years. I have never seen water along Park Street, as it was shown in some of the photographs, for so long. It was there from August until December. It was just staggering, absolutely staggering. There are some significant problems through the area. Not only is it because there is so much water, it's because it's not just the water from urban development, it's the fact that there isn't downstream headworks done in the first place, so that the water is not going into the places it's supposed to be going. Some of the strategies have failed. There is too much water going through. There is no monitoring of any of that. So what is going into the river, we have no idea about. That there is insufficient of everything that is happening at the moment in the area. It's a really serious problem.
I think by doing the swap.
Humphrey, just if you are going to speak, can you please return to the table and can you please directly answer the question?
If you do the swap that was as proposed by Jan, and I also put in my submission a month ago, then you have a chance of making the bushland, to save the bushland. If we don't do it, because if there then is any water problems, it is closer to Widener Park railway station. So that's already sort of stuffed up anyway to say it. So
Can I just add that the water in the area, because it comes from the groundwater comes from the Nangara Mount, it's moving from the northwest to a southeast in a southeast direction down into the river. So all of the Brabham Stage 3 development is going to impact Bush Forever site. And it is a serious problem because it was not addressed in the first place. When that the LSP came to this commission for a decision on that, there were no questions asked apart from you, Chairperson, about the water problems. At that stage too, they weren't as evident as what they are now, but we have been collecting information last year and it is blindingly obvious that there is a serious problem there. What happens within Brabham Stage 3 will have a major effect on the Bush Forever site.
Thanks, Jan. I think I understand you're addressing the broader area, but we're probably moving into,
Sure.
made your point very clearly.
So
I think it's an opportunity now for you to answer questions. So if we can just see whether there are any further questions, otherwise I think we'll be here for a long time and you have had extra time for your deputation today. So see if there are any further questions, because I think you've addressed that one.
Thank you. Through the chair. I know that you had suggested that the plan was self-explanatory, but I did want you to perhaps expand upon this notion that the plan that you have, which is hatched area B, I'm not entirely clear what it is that you're proposing. So is it that an area to the north be urbanised for retention of the area to the south, or is that in reverse?
So can we go back to slide 3, I think it was, please? Would you like me to go and show you on the...
That would be very helpful.
Okay, so this area up here is an area that's the native vegetation retention area that's to do with the Morley-Ellenbrook line. And before anything can be done there, that has to be lifted because it's been reserved through the EPBC, I can't remember what, 2019 74586 or whatever. So what we're proposing is that these trees here are significant and they would stay within that as a public open space. This section through here covers a whole lot of trees that a lot of them are regrowth and a lot of them are acacia. There's one tree right up the top. There's 4 trees right up the top in the one group up there. What we're proposing is that is swapped for a section of land down here where there are the same number of trees.
Yes, okay, now I understand. Thank you. So, and that's linked to the overpass scenario.
Yes, thank you.
And
thank you.
are there any further questions for the deputies? Thank you very much. I appreciate your deputation. Appreciate your time.
The deputation on the same item is from Alex Jarvis and Paul Morgan, and they are joining us via Zoom. Alex, if you can hear me, can you please turn your video on so the commission members can see you on their screens?
Thank you very much. You guys got us now.
Thanks very much, Alex. And doesn't look like Paul Morgan. If I may, I ask who's joining you this morning?
Yeah, so I'm here with Amy Nancaro, Senior Development Manager from Peat Limited.
Great, thanks very much. Over to you when you're ready to deliver your deputation.
Thank you very much. And we've just got the one slide to share. Yeah, great. That's on screen there now. Thank you. Just for a little bit of context. So good morning, Chair and Commission members. As you've just heard, I'm Alex Jarvis and I'm here with Amy Nancaro from Peat Limited. I wish to just speak briefly on behalf of our client Peat in support of all land subject to the Brabham and Dayton MRS amendment being rezoned to urban, given it is no longer required for the various purposes that the land is reserved under the MRS. In addition, we request the WAPC support a concurrent amendment to the City of Swans local planning scheme. In partnership with Development WA, Peat has been actively developing the Brabham estate, which includes receiving recent structure plan approval over most of Lot 822, which is located south of Yuldean Road and is in proximity to the amendment area. However, approximately 10 hectares of lot 822 was excluded from the structure plan pending resolution of this MRS amendment. This is to ensure future planning of this land, which is adjacent to the Whiteman Park train station, is progressed in a coordinated manner. And just for a bit of context, you can see the structure plan area there that was just referred to by previous speakers as LSP3. It covers about 100 hectares of land south of Yuldean Road. And you can also see that the balance of lot 822 in the orange hatching is about 10 hectares in size. We excluded that land from the structure plan given its proximity to the Whiteman Park train station. So confirmation on the future zoning will therefore allow for coordinated planning to commence over this remaining portion of land east of Drumpelia Drive, that in future will link the adjoining areas of Brabham and Dayton with the new train station and associated Drumpelia Drive pedestrian underpass. In this respect, we support rezoning of this land to urban to ensure appropriate residential densities and land uses are provided in proximity to this new train station, as well as the planned Brabham High School and the recently approved expansion to the Brabham District Centre. And just again on the plan there, you can see the high school site in yellow in the southwestern corner of the structure plan, and also the recently approved expansion of the Brabham District Centre to the south side of Yuldean Road. That's just in blue there in the northwestern corner of the structure plan. Now, we do understand concerns have been raised regarding rezoning lot 94 from its current Parks and Recreation reservation. Whilst reserved as Parks and Recreation, this land is largely devoid of vegetation due to previous pastoral uses and is severed from the adjoining Bush Forever Site 200 by Isadoon Street. And it is our understanding that ultimately it does offer little environmental value. We therefore support this land being rezoned to urban as it represents the most efficient use that will complement the emerging Brabham estate, the surrounding amenities, and also the significant infrastructure investment in this corridor recently. So in summary, we support all land subject to this amendment being rezoned directly to the urban zone, as well as a concurrent amendment to the City of Swan's local planning scheme, which we believe would minimise the administrative processes associated with urbanisation of this land. So thank you, Chair and Commission members, and certainly we would be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Alex and Amy. It's Emma Cole here, Chair. Just wanted to know whether you'd like to respond to some of the issues that have been raised by the deputations that have come before you. In particular, the focus has been on issues around groundwater and protection of Bush Forever Site 200. I think some of this is linked to the broader LSP area, so I'm happy to acknowledge that. And also the proposal of an ecological corridor. Would you like to respond to those matters?
Yeah, look, I think just briefly, probably in relation to that first point regarding the groundwater, the land that's subject to this MRS amendment, it does sit within the broader Albion District Structure Plan. So that was historically supported by its own DWMS. The Brabham Structure Plan that was referenced and it was recently approved by the Commission that had its own LWMS associated with it. That was supported by DEWA and subsequently been approved. This land that we're dealing with now, subject to this MRS amendment, will need to go through its own future structure planning process and will then be subject to its own future LWMS. So any concerns regarding the local water management strategy and the groundwater will need to be appropriately reviewed at that point in time. We don't believe we're there at the moment. We're currently just dealing with the MRS amendment, so that can come out through the future planning processes. Regarding the second point around the ecological linkage, we're not really familiar with any strategic framework that seeks to deliver that ecological linkage. I think it's apparent that that linkage has been significantly severed by Drumpelia Drive, the Whiteman Park train station, and also Isadoon Street. So whilst we acknowledge those concerns and they have been previously raised, we don't think the retention of Lot 94 as Parks and Recreation will offer any substantial benefit as an ecological linkage.
Thank you. Commission members, any questions? Commissioner Heron.
Thank you. Through the Chair, I suppose the first question does relate to obviously the strategic plan that has occurred, because I mean obviously there was representation made earlier about those corridors and the linkage between Whiteman Park and the Swan River. I just want to understand what examination has occurred in relation to that. Again, fully appreciating, as I'd raised before, the notion of severance relating to the highway extension and railway, but also acknowledging the fact that there are and have been ecological overpasses that have been undertaken elsewhere where that's required. So could you just perhaps talk to what level of strategic consideration was given in surrounding that?
Well, I suppose in relation to the ecological linkages, I think the changes have been what we've seen through the work on the ground probably over the last 5 to 10 years, particularly including the introduction of the Whiteman Park train station. In regards to ecological linkages, that's something that historically has been delivered by state government agencies. That's not something that we're looking at as part of this proposal. We're simply looking at what changes have occurred within this area, significantly increase in the number of residents, expansion to a district centre, significant infrastructure investment in this corridor by the state government for a train station, ensuring that we get appropriate density in that location. So I suppose it's been the contextual changes on the ground that we've looked at that we believe warrant reconsideration of Lot 94 as a parks and recreation reserve.
Sorry, through the chair, can I ask what extent of density you are considering in this particular location?
Yeah, look, not at this point. We can't say because at the moment, I suppose we're trying to have the MRS amendment resolved so we know what extent of land is urban. At this point in time, we represent Pete, who with the Department of Communities are the developers for the balance of Lot 822. The remainder of that land is currently still owned by the WAPC, so we haven't done any detailed structure planning over there. However, we certainly acknowledge that some of this area is within the 400, 800 metre walkable catchment of the Whiteman Park train station, and it also sits within the Whiteman Park master plan concept area. So that we need to have a look at what that future built form outcomes will look like. But no, we can't speak to the detail and the final densities within the entire precinct. We would expect that more traditional suburban densities would likely be proposed further from the train station around Lot 94 and towards that Dayton area where this area will ultimately connect to Dayton in future.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any further questions? No further questions for you today, but thanks very much for your deputation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Commission members, noting that we do have a number of written deputations as well being tabled in the agenda report. They are in relation to district structure plan for North East Baldivis from Roger Gabriel of Row Group in support. In relation to the MRS amendment for Maida Vale Urban Precinct, which I have declared an interest of 2 written deputations against from Dana Sims, landowner, and Charles and Beverly Dornack of Ecovision. In relation to the MRS amendments for Brabham and Dayton Urban Precincts, we have a written deputation from Cheryl Rogers against the proposal, and in relation to the same item, Anna Holt also against the proposal. That concludes the deputations for today. So Commission members, I'm in your hands. Would you like to at this stage, or would you like to continue to deal with the public items? You? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we do have 3 public items today. Item 3.1, which is a lifting of urban deferment in the MRS for the Bullsbrook South Precinct. And we are joined by Rowan Miller today. Do you have any comments you'd like to make in relation to the report before we ask questions?
No, thank you, Chair.
Matt, hello. You're also pending on this item.
Thank you, Chair. Probably just a commentary in relation to the area that will be considered by the Commission as outlined in the report. Yes, the area that the Department has recommended is based on the capacity of the existing Bullsbrook sewer system. It's acknowledged through the work, and I've been involved with Watercorp looking at broader sewer system linking ultimately Bullsbrook through Ellenbrook to the outfall at Alkimos. is a longer term solution that will ultimately all of the central and all south. It comes down to process decision as whether and then go through another lifting request at a future date. In terms of the structure plan that the department currently has with us, Metro North team, is that it does have a staging section within the part 1. It does reference 560 lots within that at this point in time. From a practical point of view, my view on it is that if the developer wants to change the configuration of that area moving forward, if it jumps outside of that initial area as identified, they'd have to come back and have a rezoning request or a request under the MRS, whereas having the broader area considered will give some flexibility of where it is. That 560 is sort of the magical number at this point in time of what that particular area can service by putting an additional pump station in. Still longer term, it will facilitate rates of water quality planning, and they'll need to secure some additional government funding for CapEx and obviously for OpEx as well. That will actually facilitate bringing on those lots when the full service is there. So effectively, as suggested by the proponent's representative, we can put an appropriate clause into part 1 of the structure plan, but ultimately the subdivision approvals that would be issued by the commission would be subject to connection to a proper installed sewer system. That would be the absolute lot we have, and we would granting approval to lots that aren't able to, that cannot be serviced.
Commissioner Sandry.
Thank you. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. Just from the department's perspective, if the entire area was zoned urban, what are the risks?
Yep.
And was there a reason why the department didn't put forward that recommendation?
As through you, Chair, as has been outlined previously, it becomes, and not by me, by the proponent, it comes down to a balancing act of where we go in terms of, do you go all of the land or of the land? Both answers are actually right. There's probably a bit of history, and it's the risk management process of how you actually move forward. Always two views, and they are both correct. The department is probably over a period of time cautious side. However, being involved in this space sufficiently long enough, and I know this particular patch well, that answer that is nil. You have structure plan framework that gives you security that you can issue the appropriate approvals at the appropriate point in time.
Chair, and thank you for that. That's super useful. So in terms of the structure plan and noting as part of the first stage, we can put some parameters in there. Is it fair to say that the structure plan is due regard, so it's not as weighty as we could probably apply, but the most appropriate mechanism would be a subdivision, and that we have absolute determination over, so that's our fallback. I just wanted to make sure that's the case.
Through you, Chair, the structure plan, yes, is a due regard document, but with any of the structure plans that the geographical teams look at, we look at them probably a little bit stronger than due regard. We look at them as they are the fault Bible that we use. There are extenuating circumstances or where we need to nuance the planning outcome to look at them and see whether that structure plan was appropriate at that point in time as well. Yes, subdivision becomes the absolute lock, but if this structure plan is giving strong guidance that there is an appropriate staging plan, but if they came in with a slightly different one that was still achieving the same outcome, we would still look at it and try to look at it in a pragmatic outcome-based solution.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Members, probably I'm happy to ask a few questions just in terms of, I guess we've got a report that partial lifting as opposed to the lift of the entire area. We've got commentary from City of Swan. Do we have any idea of what their views on full lifting or in relation to the Water Corporation magnitude of cost? Be able to understand as well.
I'll answer the first one through Chair. In terms of the City of Swan, they have through the through their submission and through the endorsement or recommended endorsement of the structure plan, identified the full area to be approved. It's not a patching out of the structure plan area based on it. They recognise that in terms of the Bullsbrook, it could take a little bit longer to fill it in over time. I think that they would be comfortable with it. Water Corp, we haven't directly gone back on the full area. However, as referenced in the report, Water Corp will take reference to the Commission's decision, and it's a Commission decision at the end of the day as to how much of that area is absolutely zoned or lifted at this point in time. They know that, and they've been involved in all the conversations over the journey of the extent of the Bullsbrook area, so they are fully aware that over a period of time that they will need to service it at a higher level, all of it as opposed to a portion of it as it currently sits. So they will need to upgrade. I haven't got the figures of how much that would be off the top of my head, Chair, so I can't answer that one. But I think there's a figure floating around that is the overall trunk main upgrade from Bullsbrook to Ellenbrook. It's probably in the, I think it was around the 80 million, including pump stations. That's to service the whole of Ellenbrook and also to pick up North Ellenbrook, ESP area, to ultimately come into top end of Brambyway or Ellenbrook. So it's not just for the Bullsbrook area, it's for Bullsbrook. Ultimately, what could be picked up as part of the industrial area adjacent to Stock Road and then North Ellenbrook, so it can't just be attributed to Bullsbrook itself.
Commission members, Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. I just note in the report, in the exec summary, the first dot point says lifting of urban development request seeks to transfer 80 hectares of land. Just wanting clarification on how much actual land was requested by the applicant to lift.
You, Chair, the initial one was for all of it. Whole area as per an alternate plan that's been provided.
In hectares, if I may.
187. 187, so that was very quietly, but sort of. Anything further, Commissioner Hall?
Just seeking some clarification on just reading through the report. I couldn't see anywhere where that was included in the report. I'm just curious as to why we wouldn't put in what the applicant actually came to and asked for and why that was omitted from the report.
Through the Chair, and thank you for the question. It wasn't deliberately omitted from the report. The reference in the executive summary is an error.
Is there any further questions, Commissioner Heron?
Thank you, through the Chair. So should the Commission be so inclined as to lift for the entire location, is there the opportunity for you to, because obviously it's referring to a plan that would therefore not be appropriate, is there a terminology that could be undertaken which would enable that you were able to provide?
Through you, Chair, we have already provided an alternative plan.
Strike that.
Yes, we've got a number of alternates provided quite late because they were coming in late, but yes, they're on the email, but I have a printed version here in front of me. Hopefully we've all had the opportunity to see that. So just to be clear, we do have the recommendation before us and we do have an alternate motion, which has been requested by Commissioner Lakey.
Yeah, can I please ask that that be recirculated?
Oh, yes. There were 2 emails with a number of. Okay.
I got the one yesterday.
I only got one. And Sam's just gonna say.
It's been recirculated by Sam now.
Thank you.
Questions? Yes.
Through the chair, just in terms of the landfill, so I understand the landfill ceased in 2018. Has there been any contamination identified in or around that area as a result of that?
Through you, Chair, not that I'm aware of in my conversations with the City of Swan.
Commissioners, any further questions? Yes, Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Just noting some slight refinements or changes from the district structure plan. Is that from buffers and the like, just on the eastern side? And the subject land area extends beyond the district structure plan?
Through you, there's over the process of the last 7 or 8, maybe slightly longer, there's been multiple lines running of where that appropriate buffer distance is between the extractive industry that's occurring in that area. So as we've gone through the subsequent stages, and we'll need to address it at the local structure plan of where the actual, effectively the line is in the sand between clay extraction to the east and this particular subject area. We find that at structure plan stages.
Anything further, commissioners? Okay, so we do have a recommendation before us and an alternate motion. So I'm in your hands as to which is moved.
Happy to move the alternative recommendation.
Is there a seconder?
I can't.
Oh, sorry.
I don't have it. I'll bring it up on the screen. Thank you. And I think it's only fair that. Yes, that's what it says.
Sorry, Commissioner Adair, I thought you'd all received it.
No, I didn't get it.
Now, can you read that? I'll give you a few minutes to digest. Have the opportunity. Yes, Commissioner Adair.
Yes,
okay, so it's been moved by Commissioner Herron, seconded by Commissioner Lakey. Commissioner Herron, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Well, I suppose the only thing I would say is that based on representation, but also the advice we've received today, I feel comfortable that there are suitable mechanisms in place to manage the servicing of the land to the south, and therefore from a clarity and flexibility perspective, I'm very comfortable to have the entire section lifted.
Commissioner Lakey, any comments?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I endorse what I just said. I think that there's been a lot of work on this land for a long time. It's been known that the whole land is supported by a structure plan, which is supported by the City of Swan and the agency. I think visions, Commissioner has said, give us comfort that there's no risk in terms of or there's no cost, but it does give the proponent some certainty in terms of the direction of a plan of a project, which can now move forward towards this particular.
Okay, commissioners, any further comments? Commissioner Sandry.
Just a question, just to follow on from Commissioner Hall previously in question time. I just want to clarify, just for absolute certainty, that the lots that will form part of this amendment will not include any of the, it will only include rural land. Because there are differing maps.
I'm just looking for a plan. Bear with me a moment.
Range attachment 5.
So attachment 3, which is the existing MRS plan, references it all as being urban deferred. Sorry, I should say urban deferred land. And then that lot 9002 is, sorry, I should say urban deferred. It's all urban deferred and it's not relating to the rural. Wanted to-
We can answer the question, Chair. Yes, the urban lifting only refers to the urban deferred land as depicted on the plans. Doesn't include any of the rural land, which that would need to have its own amendment process.
And then one other question, Chair. I don't know whether it's worth noting in the recommendation or not, just regarding infrastructure costs and that hasn't been accounted for the entirety of the area. I don't know whether the mover or seconder would be happy with the limb 3 that just says notes that infrastructure costs haven't been allocated to the entirety of the area. Something to let it go.
It can be either done that way or by an amendment, but if the mover and seconder are happy to oblige, we probably just need a form of words that we can put on the screen for everyone to contemplate.
Just notes that infrastructure costs have not been scheduled or planned for the entirety of the
I
area.
think scheduled, planned or funded.
Infrastructure costs have not been funded for the entirety of the area.
But that, sorry, when we say infrastructure costs, I think we need to be specific. We're talking about the wastewater.
Wastewater.
Infrastructure.
It's committed.
Yes.
Committed.
Yeah, funded. Not notes.
I can see that Justin McCurdy has his hand up and might want to add something at this point.
Just put wastewater in front of the word infrastructure.
Justin, are you wanting to speak before this amendment is considered?
Thanks, Chair. Just wanted to also clarify that road infrastructure has not been funded either. Whilst it is contemplated, there's reservations in place. It's not been contemplated. It's not currently funded for that section. And I'm not sure how much extra might be required, but there is contemplation with the increased development through this area that Great Northern Highway would go to dual carriageway, at least in the section north of Stock Road.
Thank you very much, Justin. Can I suggest that we perhaps just leave it as infrastructure, because I hazard a guess that there may be other agencies that might raise other infrastructure costs. So I think it does need to remain broad. So if we could have the wording, sorry, I don't read that. Note that the infrastructure costs have not been committed for the entirety of the area of the MRSF.
Through Chair, just I think some of the costs have been.
Yeah.
Implies that no infrastructure costs have been.
Elements of, I think.
Elements of, yeah.
Okay, so now can I just go to the mover and seconder to, oh, sorry, Matt Selby.
Thank you, Chair. Could I suggest that you put the tag of regional structure costs? Because the infrastructure costs within the development areas will be funded by the developers. It's the impact on the regional infrastructure that's actually.
Understood and adopted, thank you. But I will go to the move seconder to see if you're satisfied with the form of words and you're happy to adopt this as as part of the motion.
Happy to.
Okay, commissioners, any further questions or comments? Just from me, I think it's important to note that the subject land, the majority is urban expansion with that medium horizon, which is 2022 plus. So we're sort of hitting the right timing in terms of what the frameworks, Northeast Sub-Regional Framework is saying. And I think it's also important to note that the proponent and applicant has acknowledged today that there are unfunded infrastructure, regional infrastructure costs associated, and that has been fully acknowledged today, because the Commission needs to be mindful that we are not committing to infrastructure costs. That is not our role, that is the role of the state government. So just wanted to make sure that was clear, but otherwise happy to support the motion. Any further comments? Any dissent? That's carried, thank you. Okay, moving to item 3.2, district structure plan for North East Baldivis, final approval. And we had joined by Matt Selby
And team.
and team. We've heard the deputation today. Is there anything that you wish to add before we go to questions?
I could just probably comment through you, Chair, just in relation to the question raised by Commissioner Heron in relation to the rail crossover. One of the pieces of work that is yet to be done, the district structure plan for the area for the balance of the east of Kwinana area, which would actually pick up the area to the north. That's a project that the former chair would like the department to undertake, given that that area north is actually quite a fragmented piece of land area, I should say, and also the balance or the eastern portion of that is in a couple of different broader land ownership. So that's a conversation that we get to dive into, but that's a piece of work that I would suggest later, and then that will help to answer the questions of exactly where that flyover the rail corridor will occur. In terms of, I think it's evident to the rest of it that the modifications have been done in accordance with the instructions, but I'd just probably like to add some commentary that was asked earlier about the depth of the area. Once, if you take out the future protection area associated with Mundijong Road, the area to the north and the urban wedge that's left between that blue dashed line that was up previously and the multi-use corridor, the minimum width at the western edge is around 110 metres. Yes, as the scale, it probably doesn't easily translate on the plan, around that area of 110 floating to about 210 at its eastern extension. So it's actually quite deep for some urbanisation and for residential lots. About it, Chair, off. Happy for questions. Thank you. Just in relation to the neighbourhood centre, that was clearly an item that was raised. Are you able to expand upon in terms of your extent of comfort? I mean, I don't see an issue, but obviously you're the people who are dealing with the elements of detail. If you could perhaps discuss as to whether there were any issues or concerns that you had in relation to that location. Thank you for the question through you, Chair. Having been involved in the structure plan for DSP from effectively early inception, there was a lot of conversation about the commercial area adjacent to Mundijong Road and the role that it would fill, as well as the internal neighbourhood centre as identified by the proponent that would be in one of the other precincts. The commercial area adjacent to Mundijong Road is not only going to be filling that retail space, but it's also in there will be, as assume the proponent is still wishing to pursue this, was incubator trade type employment generating land, given the proximity of this area in a broader sense to Westport, the Kwinana area, etc. There's not a lot of business incubation areas within the southwestern corridor area. So it was also going to have not just purely be traditional by major road type commercial activities that you would see. So in terms of the area, we thought that there was actually because it would be serviced in a couple of locations, a reasonable place to put it and enable not only the local population, but also there's a broader population that would have some easy access to the area, linking Byford and Mundijong through the fair amount identified by the Shire of SJ that in this particular area. Currently, the City of Rockingham is actually upgrading a portion of Mundijong Road and it's closed for some repair and restoration works.
Thank you. And through the chair, if I may also ask about the issue that was raised around the drainage and potential implications on the site. Again, understanding the fact that that there will need to be further detail through the LSP process, but just wanting to confirm the current understanding and consideration around that, and the extent of comfort that the current provision is adequate to contain it within the said site.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. This area has had extensive and multiple years of modelling, and I'd hate to what the cost of the government to actually look at what the multiple use corridor outcome at the end of the day. We are comfortable, and there's just a last piece of modelling to make sure that there are no funds or anything that shouldn't be within that area, that the area is capable of retaining that area subject to the last piece. By the time we come back with the urban consideration, we'll have that absolutely nailed down, but we're not getting any fatal flaw back or indication where in relation to that management strategy. So we believe that the area itself is capable of actually the water that flows through the area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just on that, oh, sorry, go ahead, Commissioner.
Going to ask about the current status of the management of the MUCs. There's some comment in there about remaining publication ongoing by the Water Corporation. I just wanted to understand what the status of that.
As the proponent, through you, Chair, as the proponent outlined and is aware of, there is a joint briefing note heading up to this consideration of the declaration of this area as a drainage area. So at Water Corp have agreed to be the manager, but again, it means that sign off that I believe will be heading up that space. We've seen the last version of it recently. That will be presented to a minister.
And just one other thing, is it okay for us to ask?
Oh, yes, I was going to actually invite, I'm very conscious that we have both Justin McCurdy and representatives Liam and Damien from Dewar here today. And I know Justin's already flagged that he'd like to talk about Mundijong Road, but very happy to invite Dewar to make any comments in relation to the water management and MUCs.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, look, I think it's been largely there covered, obviously, with the update from Matt and DPLH. I think just we are supportive of the district structure plan to progress, but as has been noted, just important that the management strategy is finalised before we progress to that next steps in terms of planning process. That's probably just a tip from our perspective. Thank you, Liam.
Damien, did you have any further comments? Are you happy for me to move to Justin on Mundijong Road?
No, Liam's covered. Thank you.
Okay, Justin.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, there's probably a number of different questions that got raised on transport matters, and I might just rapidly run through them if you're comfortable with that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, first one, Mundijong Road converting to a state road. I think the question was what's been contemplated and what conversations have been had. I can confirm that Main Roads did a considerable amount of work some years ago to contemplate what roads may be considered for conversion to state roads at some point in the future. There's currently a bit of a program that is being worked through, and it contemplates about a 20-year period of time where some of them will transfer. Mundijong Road was definitely one of those and is contemplated at some point in time, and the advice that I've got from Main Roads is probably in the next 5 to 10 years. As a result, it's fair to say that there hasn't been a lot of planning done by Main Roads on that corridor yet, but certainly been cognizant of it and done some preliminary work to obviously inform conversations like this. But they're still in the process of doing planning work, and it will need to be informed by a lot of the contextual issues that have been discussed in this process. But I think Matt also talked about the area to the north and the broader context. Andrew obviously talked about what's happening further along to the east, and Mundijong Road is a very important east-west linkage when you look up at it in the context of the southeast corridor. There was then also another question around the neighbourhood centre. I think Andrew Trussick raised this. There are always tensions when neighbourhood centres are placed on integrator roads intersecting with primary regional roads. It's not to say they can't happen, not to say they shouldn't happen, but there is always tensions, and it comes down to how are they treated and what are the access arrangements and what are the types of activity that are put into them. I think Matt's talked to the notion that it could be quite a dispersed land use outcome that could be there. I think where it becomes particularly complex is when we start having a lot of fast food outlets and service stations immediately on these busy intersections, and therefore a want for multiple access points. And I think that was really the point that Andrew was getting to. So complex, not impossible, perhaps not desirable from a transport perspective, but for your consideration. There was talk of the rail crossing. I think the question was from Commissioner Heron about, is there sufficient space allocated in that consideration zone, the crossed area labelled investigation area? Probably the comment I'd make there is I would say no, in terms of the footprint that any grade separation may contemplate. Typically they occur at right angles to a rail line, and therefore I would anticipate it would project into the land area further south of that hashed area. The contemplation at the moment is that it connects with the road to the north, and sorry, I'm trying to think of the name of it now.
Miller Road. Goes over Miller Road.
Goes over Miller and connects potentially in with Walcott Road to the north. Has been contemplated as the logical location, which is the road reserve depicted where the word road exists on the district structure plan map for everyone's reference. So the intent really is, and I think Matt also talked to this, there's a significant potential land development area to the north of the rail line, and if I can work out if I can share my screen. Can you see that now?
Yes, thank you.
So that is just the Plan WA with the MRS on it. The area we're talking about to the north is all of this. Obviously the rail line being a significant barrier, and the land that we're talking about here is part of this amendment. The consideration at the moment is how do we potentially better connect this area with urban fringe up here, and therefore give the ability to disperse some of the demand both north and south that then would connect with the freeway. But similarly, how do we prevent in the future, if more of this land goes to urban development and potentially down through here, how do we prevent the freeway and Tonkin Highway becoming local routes to actually connect these areas? is one of the key considerations. I think the conversation around the Commissioner Sandry asked around residential land, hopefully you're comfortable with what Matt Selby's talked to. I think the only concern that I would raise there is in the proposed figure 24, which has a proposed subdivision on it. There is a contemplation of a cap road immediately adjacent to Mundijong Road, which would be within that widened area, and that may prove problematic in the short term. So that would be my only concern there. There was a comment made about Kwinana Freeway being a 40-metre reserve. That's wrong. Kwinana Freeway is typically a 100-metre wide reserve. And whilst there's contemplation here of a 95-metre reserve or 95 metre wide area being set aside to enable for the planning, I'm sure that the final reserve may well be less and probably more consistent with the 60 odd metres that was mentioned earlier. The final one, perhaps just to touch on, is the DSP does talk to public transport. It talks to private bus services and contemplation that at some point in time there might be public transport services, bus services. Probably the thing at the moment is that the road network isn't probably entirely set up to enable the level of service that PTA is currently obliged to meet under their KPIs. And so that would be something that would need to be worked through in the next detailed phases. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Justin. Matt, did you want to add anything after hearing from Justin and Liam?
I may, Chair, just in relation to obviously the access in relation to any future centre adjacent to Mundijong Road, the local structure plan will need to carefully consider access points and ensure that it is access to a future primary regional road and in essence gear it towards the internal network to provide accesses directly off Mundijong Road. That will be something that we'll look at in detail when we get to the local structure preparation.
Okay. Commission members, any questions arising from those matters or anything further? Okay, thank you very much all. I'll now move then to Speaker, mover and seconder for the item. The recommendation before us. Thank you, Commissioner Lakey, seconded by Commissioner Adair. Commissioner Lakey, do you wish to speak to the recommendation?
Oh, I will. Thank you, Chair. I think there's been a lot of work done on this project over a long time. It came to the Commission not long ago. I commend both DPLH and the proponent for working through the modifications and in a proactive way. And I'm very satisfied that it is in a position to be approved in its current form. So,
Commissioner Adair, anything to add? Commissioners, any comments? Probably just to add in terms of the modifications that we thought last time, the multi-use corridors, I think it's incredibly important that interim management, the Water Corporation, that was quite a consideration for the Commission. And the applicant's been able to demonstrate the location in high school with the district open space being hydrologically unconstrained, which was another requirement. And I think we've had a good discussion today about Mundijong Road and many of the other transport matters. So I'm satisfied that we've moved forward considerably since we last dealt with this DSP and happy to support the recommendation. Anything further? Okay, any dissent? That's carried. Thank you very much. Commissioner Bennett. Okay, we are now at item 3.3, which is the local government design review manual. And just that I have requested an alternate motion for your consideration. Hopefully you've all received that. Has everybody seen the alternate? Yes, I think so. Okay. Can't really speak to it until it's moved, but you, Commissioner Sandry.
A new recommendation.
Yeah, seconded by Commissioner Adair. Thank you very much. You wish to speak to it?
I'd like to hear from you, Chair.
Yes, thank you. Look, I just wanted to say that in relation to some work that's happening at the state level in terms of looking at the scope of development applications coming through the 11B pathway, I think it's fair to say that not all are at requiring state level design review. So we're actually looking at a sort of triaging system in terms of tailoring design review at the state level, dependent on the scale and style of development coming through, because we have a $20 million threshold for the Part 11B process, and I think that there is some current work happening which could then to inform local government design review, noting that what we're proposing here is guidance, but I think that it gives us an opportunity to take some of the structural issues that we're contemplating and perhaps apply them to local government design review, and also perhaps make the manual more concise and focused on some of the key issues that the Commission is very keen to communicate around thresholds and what is, that not all design review must be full panel. It's where the scope doesn't require it. So I think there can be some few tweaks made, and hoping to get this back to the Commission as soon as possible, given that we have deferred already. But I think that we will get a good product coming through. And we'll reconvene the working group just to make sure that we've all reviewed the draft before it comes back with no more than 3 months, but I think most likely do it sooner.
Chair, before you go on, could we share the alternate recommendation, please, just given that we are live streaming? Want to see the motion? Motion is to defer.
Yes, that's right. So motion to defer for no more than 3 months. Any questions or comments? Any dissent? That's carried. Thank you very much. So that includes the public items for the meeting today, and we will be moving to deal with the confidential items remaining on the agenda. So I will ask for a seconder that we close the meeting to the public and that we the confidential items behind closed doors. Moved by Commissioner Hall, seconded by Commissioner Shears. Any dissent?